Now, I will show you some supplies and you tell me what we are doing today. And this. They look like makeup tools, but actually they are our supplies for our pen pastel work today. We will paint this beautiful portrait together with pen pastels and pastel pencils. This was my first time with pen pastels, and I'm going to share all the experience I had with you in a second. If you want the narrated full real-time tutorial of this painting, you can find it on my Patreon, patreon.com/Ece Gurler. You just pay a small amount per month to support me. In return, you reach the library of all my tutorials. For coupons, discounts, and giveaways, you can always check out my Instagram account, Ece Gurler Art. Without further ado, let's paint! First, I would like to introduce you my supplies, and then I will show you how to do this beautiful sketch together. I'm going to trace it on this paper. This is a white paper with no tooth. I'm going to use it to blend my colors. These are my pen pastels on the right, and on the top left corner, as you see, I put the names of the colors on them so you can easily see them. The other pastels I have are on the right corner, my pastel pencils. What other supplies do we need? We need other supplies to blend them. These three look like a makeup tool. They are actually makeup tools, but we are going to use them to blend our pastels today. Then we have this triangle sponge. We will do this for the background. And this knife is great for, again, larger areas. I have this napkin with me so I can clean my sponges with this. Here is the pen pastels that I'm using today. Pen Pastel, Artist's Pastels, 20 color set portrait. And if you look in the back, you will see the color selection they have. Unfortunately, they didn't have black, and that was a little bit difficult for me, but we will manage. As the pastel mat, I'm using Clairefontaine. I highly recommend it. It is an expensive one, but it doesn't show any tooth so that you can have smooth surface in the end. And also they have this little separator paper here, which really helps me. These are my pencils, Carbothello. I have the set of 60. And when you open it, you see that they have 2 layers. And I already picked my colors, so they are on the top right part right now. They are very good pencils. I highly recommend them as well. Let me talk to you about pen pastels a little bit. So this is raw umber, for example. We are very familiar with this color. And then raw umber shade means it's darker shade for shadows. And we have raw umber tint, much lighter form of raw umber. So every color has these kind of shades and tints in pen pastels, and you can buy them separately if you want to, or in a set. Let me show you one more. Burnt sienna tint, burnt sienna itself, and burnt sienna shade. These are very commonly used in portraits. That's why the portrait set had them. So I hope this gave you a good idea about pen pastels. Now we can start drawing our sketch. What I did for the sketch, I basically traced from my monitor onto a white paper or transparent paper, and I traced it over the lines with my white pastel pencil. And finally, I put it on my pastel mat. I aligned it perfectly and I taped it so it wouldn't slip. Then I went over those lines again with a different colored pen so that I can see where I actually traced and I didn't. In the end, you will see that all that white pastel that we traced will come off on the pastel mat. Now we are ready. First of all, I started with the small applicator for the face. I just dipped it into my pen pastel and I applied it very smoothly on the paper. Although the end result looks smooth, the paper itself is like sandpaper, not smooth at all. So it holds the pastel very well. I applied all these skin colors with my small applicator first. And wherever I see a different tone or different color, definitely I reflected on my sketch so that I can go in there and color it differently. For example, here I have a little bit of color testing. That's why I have my white paper there. I just test my paint there first and then I go in and apply it on the face. For instance, you see me here, I'm applying a burnt sienna tint and I'm mixing with burnt sienna, but I still couldn't get the dark color that I was looking for. That means I need some sort of shade. So I am going to add some burnt sienna shade, and then it's going to get darker. And once I'm happy with the color that I get in the end, I'm just going to go in and apply it to my face. Another advantage is that the power of mixing. So for example, I didn't have purple color in my set, but what I did was I mixed the blue and red and I got my purple color. If you don't want to buy pen pastels in sets of 20, 24 or 40, then you can only buy the primary colors and white and black, and then you can all mix them together in order to get the other secondary and tertiary colors. Pan pastels are great for mixing. Pan pastels are also a little bit expensive, but they last really long time, so it's an investment. If you want to work with pastels in the long term, I highly recommend to get them. One of the best things about pastels is that you can apply a lighter shade on a darker shade and it looks fine. For example, here I applied a very dark gray, bluish color like Payne's gray, and then I didn't like it, so I went over it with my skin color again and it just covered it up. It's amazing. You don't get this in other mediums this well. I was very impressed by this. As I said, in my set, I didn't have black color, so what you can do instead is you can use your pencil, and then when you apply your pencil on a different paper, you can use that dust as well. But then, of course, it's not a very economical way because your pencil doesn't have that much dust, and you don't want to eat away your pencil. So I think because of this, I'm going to get a black pen pastel soon. I'm finishing up all the details on the face with different colors, but as you see that you cannot get many details with pen pastels. This is the maximum detail you can get with pen pastels. It is not much, you just do the background. In order to get the most details, we still need pastel pencils. You can see that the lips also are not very detailed. I can't give details without pencils. So let's talk about blending. After we are sure that we got all the colors we want in, then we go over with our cotton tips and blend them in circular motions. And sometimes, of course, in a straight motion around the eye, but mostly in circular motions. They blend them perfectly. After everything is ready, the final step is to get in all the details with your pastel pencils. You don't have to have a very sharp pencil for this, but definitely you have to apply them very carefully. Here you see me adding all these shadows with different kinds of colors, different kinds of browns and skin tones. Then I apply my cotton tip just to blend them nicely. Pastel pencils, in general pastels, I think, blend really nicely. Let's talk about eyebrows and eyelashes. In order to do them in a fine detail, unfortunately the pencils kind of failed if you ask me. If you have a colored pencil, for example, Faber-Castell Polychromos would be perfect for this. You can add them in with your colored pencil instead of your pastel pencils. Because pastel pencils looked a little bit thicker and it just kind of appeared to be very dark as well. As you can see, especially the lower eyelashes are a little bit popping out too much. In the nose, you see me applying different layers of different colors, at least 6 or 7 different colors. But when we blend them with our cotton tip, they become one and they look really nice. For the lips as well, you will see that I'm mixing all these pink and red, black, brown colors and finally getting there. But again, I couldn't get the lip cracks or some other details there with my pastel pencils, but I highly recommend again to use a colored pencil there if you want finer details. Why am I using this paper under my hand? It's because I don't want to smudge the pastel and ruin my work. And you know, with pastels, you will get a lot of dust, and this dust needs to be either blown away or you can just tilt your paper and let that powder to go down into the dust bin. But if it's not working that way for you, then if you're blowing them, you might accidentally blow them to another part of your painting, and that might kind of ruin your painting. In order to avoid that, sometimes I cover that area with my paper and then I start blowing the other parts. That's why I'm using this paper here. For the clothing part, again, you cannot get as many details as possible that you get with the colored pencils, but you can still make the dark parts and the highlighted parts with your pencils, and that's going to create a beautiful texture. So basically, in the clothing part, most of the times what I used was the different shades of blue, white, and black. For the background, because I didn't have black, I couldn't do a dark background, so I used this triangle-shaped sponge to apply my yellow color instead, and I think it worked fine. This sponge is very helpful, especially if you want to get to the corners and if you're doing the edges, and it's so easy to apply this pen pastels with this sponge on your paper. I added maybe 3-4 layers of this yellow, and then I added some green. Then I use this applicator that I'm going to use in a second called Knife, but it doesn't look like knife at all. I don't know why they call it the knife, but this knife helped me a lot in terms of creating this shadow behind her. And it is really helpful because it has these edges on the rectangle sponge that will help me a lot around the ear area and the clothing part especially. Then of course we do the flying hair. And in order to give the blurry effect, I use my white and whitish color, whitish gray. And of course, her hair is brown, so I'm going to add some brown color as well to those flying hair later. Fixing mistakes is so easy with pastels. Now, I'm fixing the neck. You can see I applied the background color first, which is yellow, and then I'm going to add the shadow color. And I'm going to blend them with a cotton tip. And I'm gonna add back all the hair that I right now kind of blended away, and the clothing part as well, and voila, it's done. So it is really easy. That's one of the big advantages of working with pastels. Pan pastels overall are smooth and they are great for mixing colors and applying these mixed colors. They are great for large areas and backgrounds. Your pencils won't be enough because you're gonna eat away your pencils if you do with your pencils. It gives a fine art quality to your work. The smoothness gives this peaceful feeling, but you have to use them with pencils, especially in portraits because we need to get finer details. And finally, you can also use blending stumps with them instead of the Q-tips, especially while doing the eyelashes, for example. I found them very useful. I'm going to use now some blending stumps so you can actually see how I use them. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions or if you want to make any comments, please share them in the comments section. I'm really curious to know. I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching my video. If you like my videos, please don't forget to subscribe. And for my real-time narrated tutorials, visit my Patreon, patreon.com/Ece Gurler. Stay with art and love.